Hi you guys, welcome, välkomna, добро пожаловать. My name is Samantha Rogers. Today it's Friday and I have another true crime stories for you guys. You guys, we survived another week. Cheers to that. Hope you guys had a very productive and overall nice week. Speaking of surviving, today's story is survival story and I previously mentioned that in my other videos that I truly love hearing survival stories. It for like some reason it inspires me, in my daily life when I am being met with obstacles or challenges. Although, of course, my obstacles and challenges are nothing compared to what these victims went through, but in a way this motivates me and kind of makes me more grateful for what I have and realize that my challenges are not as severe as I think they are. So I just love survival stories, and due to that it is a survival story, I will be mentioning the victim by name. So honored to be able to tell her story today. Before we jump into today's story, I just want to quickly do a few little content warning. Today I will be discussing a torture and rape of a young teen girl. I will also be mentioning suicidal thoughts. So if this is something that you might not want to hear today, I definitely understand. And yeah, just click out of this video and I hope I see you in my next video. With all of that being said, my darlings, let's start today's story. Today's survival story takes place in 1984 in Tampa, Florida, here in the United States. And the victim, her name is Lisa McVey. And at that time in 1984, she was 17 years old. And a little backstory about Lisa's life. She was definitely not brought up in a safe, secure, happy, loving home environment. Definitely not. Lisa's mother struggled with addiction. So it was very tough for Lisa to, for her mother to basically show any sorts of a motherly love towards Lisa. And at a very young age, Lisa actually bounced from foster care to foster care. And by the age of 13, Lisa's paternal grandmother decided to kind of bring Lisa in to live with her. Lisa's grandmother had a boyfriend at the time that was also living with Lisa's grandmother. And one day, Lisa remembers that her grandmother just came into her room and said that her boyfriend had been having some sort of interest feelings toward Lisa. And at that time, she was around 13, 14 years old, so she really didn't understand what that was. And the grandma basically said, he's going to teach you how to please a man. And from that point on and going on for 3 to 4 years, Lisa was sexually abused by her grandma's boyfriend, basically on a daily basis. Sometimes even Lisa's grandmother would just sit in the room and watch the whole thing unfold right in front of her eyes. Like I said earlier, this has been going on for about 3 to 4 years, and on November 3rd, 1984, Lisa felt like she had enough. So she decided that that would be the day that she will unalive herself. And she actually also wrote a letter, basically a goodbye letter, and she went to work. At that time she worked at a local Krispy Kreme donut shop, and she actually got a double shift because the coworker that was supposed to take over the evening shift called in sick. So the manager asked Lisa to stay for a second shift, and Lisa felt like this was a sign, like a good sign. That way she could kind of mentally prepare for what she was about to do after her work. She called home. She called her grandma and just notified her that she will be working a double shift. They said okay, and yeah, she continued working. And around midnight, that's when they closed the shop, and Lisa, started biking home. And on the way home, riding her bike, she remembers that the evening was very still, very like pleasant. It was not hot, it was not cold. It was just like kind of like medium. But there were no wind. It was very still, and she was kind of, like not say happy, but she was calm, and she felt like she was, when she comes home and about to do what she was planning to do, that was the right thing to do. After a few minutes of her bike ride home, she drove or rode her bike by a church parking lot, and she remembers that the parking lot was empty without just one car sitting there at the parking lot. And she kind of felt like it was a little strange because, again, it was past midnight. Why would this car just be randomly parked in the middle of a church parking lot? But she didn't think anything of it, and she continued driving, riding her bike passed by this car. Lisa turned around just for a split second, and in that split second, someone jerked her from behind and pulled her down to the ground. So she kind of fell off the bike. And again, this happened behind her, so she couldn't really see her attacker, who he was. And they basically dragged her into the car, blindfolded her, and ordered her to get undressed. The attacker then ordered Lisa to perform oral sex on him inside of his vehicle. And at this time, Lisa was just petrified. She was very, very scared, and she just did what the person told her to do. After that, Lisa was still blindfolded, and she's now laying down in the back seat of the car. She's still naked, and she could hear the engine start and the car rolling. And she recalls that she, kind of like start listening to sounds. She heard that the car sounded a little bit weird, sounded like it needed a tune-up. So, and then she could see a little bit of the street lamp. So she kind of knew that they were going north, and Lisa was very familiar of that area. So she knew that they were driving away from her home area where she lived. After a few minutes of driving around, Lisa completely lost her sense of direction. By this point, she didn't know exactly where they were. They arrived at the destination. She could, feel the car parks, engine stop, and the man ordered her to get dressed. And her clothes were on the back seat, on the like on the floor of the back seat, on the carpet. And so she put her clothes on, and they start walking. And as they start walking, she could see that they are in some sort of a complex, like apartment complex. And when the perpetrator opened the door, she could see that he was white. So she saw his hand. He was using his left hand. Once they walked into the apartment, Lisa's abductor ordered her to again get undressed, and this time he placed her in the bathroom, the shower, and he basically bathed her. He was very calm and almost kind of nice to her. And yeah, at this point, Lisa was very, very confused. She was still afraid. She didn't know that is this the end? He's gonna kill me afterwards? Lisa's horrific night was just about to start. For hours, she was brutally raped by this man. Lisa herself can't even recall how many times. It was so many times that she lost count of how many times she was raped by this man that night. After this was over, Lisa somehow convinced her attacker to let her use the bathroom by herself. She said that she really needed to go and pee, and she wanted to go by herself because she can't pee if someone was watching her. And by a miracle chance, her perpetrator let her go. When she stepped into the bathroom, she locked the door behind her, and she started touching everything in that bathroom. In her mind, she was thinking that if this is the end, if I'm going to die tonight, I want to leave as much fingerprint as possible so the police can trace my fingerprint and know that I was here. I also read in some sources said that at this time she was actually on her period, so she took out her tampon and she basically left it in the bathroom. One source says that she did that in the car on the way to the apartment, and another source said that that happened in the bathroom. But either way, she left a trace of DNA. So she was very, very smart. Not everyone in that panic state, in that horrific state, will think of doing something like this, but she did. Lisa remembers thinking how ironic this whole situation is. Here she was a few hours ago about to, commit suicide and no longer wanted to live. And now she here in this horrific situation and basically fighting for her life to survive. She decided that instead of giving up, she decided that she is the one to decide where, when, and where she's going to die. No one else will have that power over her to decide when or where they're going to kill her. So she basically conducted a plan that she would somehow, sympathize with her abductor. So she started asking him questions, asking why he was doing this and what have you. And he basically started opening up to her. He said that he just got out of a very bad breakup, that he was still like very hurt from, and because of that, he decided to punish women. And at this point, Lisa said that I could be your girlfriend. I know that we met at very, fortunate circumstances, but no one needs to know how we met. If you're looking for a girlfriend, I can be your girlfriend. I know that you seem like a nice guy. And this seemed to actually have worked. The perpetrator basically became a little bit nicer to Lisa, and he even let her touch his face. Mind you, she's still blindfolded, so she cannot see his face. So after touching his face, she kind of like could see that he had a small nose, he had a few scars, his hair looked like it was freshly trimmed, and that he had like a little mustache. Lisa was held captive for 26 hours. The next evening rolls around, and Lisa's abductor asked her basically where she lived. She told him her location, her area where she lived, and he told her to get dressed and that they about to leave. At this point, she was not relieved yet. She was thinking that maybe this is a test. He might test me or what have you. So she was still blindfolded and still very, very scared. On the drive back to Lisa's location, she can recall that they stopped at one point and she could see her abductor go to the ATM and withdraw some money. She also recalls the word Magnum on the dashboard of the car, and she remembered that because Magnum PI was a very popular show back then in the 80s, and it was one of her favorite shows. So she remembered Magnum on the dashboard. The car stopped at a foresty location, and Lisa's abductor ordered her to get out of the car and kind of like walk slowly away from the car. And he said, wait 5 minutes before you open your blindfolds. And that's what Lisa basically did. She stood there for 5 minutes, but in her head, 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. She was very scared to take it off, just in case he was, again, behind her and just testing her to see what she would do. But then she heard the car engine turn on and the car slowly, rolling away from Lisa. So she understood that he is leaving her and that she is let free. So she slowly takes off her blindfold and she looks up, and all she can see is this big trees and the sky. And then she felt like a huge relief that, okay, I'm safe, I'm free. By this point, it's around 4 a.m. and Lisa gets back home to her grandma. And when she tells them of what happened to her, they don't believe her. So for another 5 hours, Lisa endured a beating from her grandma's boyfriend, basically because they think that she, tried to run away or she was sneaking out with some boys, and that infuriated Lisa's grandma's boyfriend. But after that beating, Lisa's grandma kind of felt bad for Lisa, so she contacted the police and told them that, Lisa claims to be abducted and what happened to her. At first, when she spoke to a female detective, the female detective didn't believe Lisa's story. She felt like the story was made up or it was a few confusions, a few holes in the story. And then Lisa asked to speak to a male detective, and this male detective is much more understanding, much more gentle to when he was talking to her, and compassionate to what she was telling him. Due to Lisa's incredible, survival instinct and her incredible detailed memory of things, sounds, places, the magnum on the car, and what have you, and all of that details led the police to arrest this man. And on November 16th, almost 2 weeks after Lisa's abduction, Bobby Joe Long was arrested. Turns out that Bobby Joe Long was a wanted serial killer because you see, in 1984, throughout that year, starting in March, 10 women was discovered in various locations in Tampa, Florida, half naked, posed in a very grotesque and degrading manner when their body was found. All women was severely raped, tortured, and most of the women had, similar uh, rope tied around their neck and a similar red fiber that was found on the women or on the women's belongings or what have you. The same red fiber, by the way, was found in Lisa's clothing, because remember when I said that her clothing was on the carpet in the back seat? So that carpet had like there was a red carpet, and it has particular red fiber that also was found on Lisa's clothes. Lisa was shocked to find out that this man was the actual serial killer that they've been looking for, and that she escaped a serial killer. She thought that he was just, some random guy. Maybe this was his first time doing this. Never did she think that she actually survived a serial killer. Bobby Joe Long received the death penalty, and he was executed on November 23rd, 2019 by a lethal injection. And Lisa was actually sitting in the front row watching his execution together with, I believe, 25 people that was basically the remaining family members and friends of the 10 victims. According to Lisa, she forgave Bobby for what he did to her a long time ago, but this execution was kind of like a closure and also a relief, because according to Lisa, she haven't been slept a full night since 1984. She'd been constantly waking up almost every night at around 3 a.m. And exactly at that time, that's when she was abducted by Bobby Lee. So she felt like after, watching his execution and kind of confirming that he is no longer a threat to anyone, he's no longer alive, she was able to finally rest, have a good night's sleep. Lisa now is a sheriff at the same office, police office, where she basically was talking to that nice detective, and her and that detective are still in contact. He is, of course, he's retired right now, but he's still alive, and him and Lisa are very, very good and close friends. She also goes around to schools and speak on events and what have you to kind of, inform people, inform young women and young boys about her horrific story and her survival story, and to inspire and to inform. This whole ordeal Lisa viewed as a sign from God to, you know, even though this was a very horrific situation that she went through, but it actually changed her life for the better, because she was now not afraid to speak on what was going on at her grandma's house. And she told the police about her grandma's boyfriend and that he's been abusing her for years and what have you. And Lisa was actually placed in another foster family, which was very, very nice foster family. And she was able to escape that horrific home. I do believe that Lisa's grandma's boyfriend was charged and got some prison time. I don't know exactly how much or what have you, but I know that he basically, yeah, he's definitely suffered the consequences. And that, my friends, is the story of Lisa McVey and her incredible survival story, and, how her survival instinct kicked in, how she was able to think clearly, even though all the things that was going on around her and to her. And she, yeah, was basically outsmarting this disgusting human, this, yeah, filth, basically human filth. She overpowered him mentally and outsmarted him, and that's how she basically got free and was able to capture him, help capture him, so he could not kill or harm any more women. Let me know what you guys think of this heroic woman, and if you have heard of this story, what's your thoughts on it? I'm so curious to know. And as always, my darlings, if you do leave comments, make sure they are nice comments, because, this is a real story, real people involved and all of that. And thank you so much again for spending your time with me on a Friday or Saturday, Sunday, whatever day you're watching this video, that you took your time out of your busy schedule to watch me tell the story. That means a lot to me. Leave a thumbs up, share this video, leave a little comment. This truly, truly helps my channel to grow, and I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you so much, and again, take care of yourself, yourself, love you guys, and I see you in my next video. Ciao, cacao!